Hey, Woodturners, I'm Captain Eddie Castellan. I got a little project chucked up here, but just a minute ago, before I got this started, the phone rang. It was one of you woodturners with a question that I get almost every day. The management said before I do another video, I should really consider what you ask for me. What you ask of me? What you ask from me? What you ask about. How's that, okay? All right. I know somebody will grammatically correct me, so why not? Tell me, because we're going to talk about the thing that bothers you the most, and that's got to be sharpening a bowl gouge. It's a simple tool, a simple grind, complex method, and it requires a drawing. You know what you got to do now? Of course you know. You got to watch. Here's the deal, before we get into this. Almost everybody today using bowl gouge is using a deep V or a deep U, but a deep fluted, because they're the same, a deep fluted bowl gouge. Old bowl gouges used to, almost out of room here, let's say. An old bowl gouge used to look like a nice smile. I've still got a handful of them around here. The deep V and deep fluted are absolutely round. The deep V's flute looks like that, and the deep U's flute well, it's a little bit deeper. Looks like that. Okay? Now, what that does is allow you to have some wings on the side. So when, I'll give you a close-up of it. So when you get into cutting, you can roll around on those wings to lengthen the distance and where you can go with the cutter to do some cutting. Now, getting that shape is what I get questions about. So let's explain it from the get-go. What seems to bother guys is getting the cutting tip right. Now, I want to show you something. This is a critical number. It's critical that you get the same one every single time. Not that you get the same angle that I have, or he has, or the guy down the street, or that famous expert who does videos, and doesn't matter. What matters is you have a cut, you have an edge that you can get every single time. You quit wasting steel, your sharpening goes faster, you get used to the cut, and it cuts right. So, where's the critical number? I like this. You see this? This is made by General. It's available in the tool section at Home Depot. This measures that angle. Come on. Why don't you look at it with me? We're going to put this on here. We're going to roll it around. You see that? Okay, you're looking at it right with me. I didn't check this before. Now we're going to go look at it. Can you see 65 degrees? That's what I see. Now, if you would have asked David Ellsworth, who put these tools in their popularity 20 years ago, what's the perfect edge for this tool? David's going to tell you 55 to 65 degrees. Really? He doesn't have an exact number. And I've got the sheets that David publishes to show how to grind this. So, and I'll be glad to send those to you. If you ask for the tips sheet, send me an email, this address, say you want to see the tips, and I'll send you the thing that shows it all to you. So, we have that edge at 65 degrees. Let me, again. That's the edge that this is the tool in the holder, sitting in the imaginary basket. Yeah, it's imaginary, I forgot to draw it. Okay. When it cuts on that wheel, that angle is this angle right there. And that angle is 55 to 65 degrees. Now, if the one you have is cutting just fine and it's 56 degrees, leave it alone. If it's 70 degrees, leave it alone. If you want to get it to 55 to 60, this is how it's going to happen. So, I showed you how to build the $2 rig. It's on the website. And if you can't find my videos, you must subscribe. And then you get all the videos. You can see them. Now, the tool goes in, it's touching the tool. This is 2 inches. When you put the tool in a holder, and I have a little jig down here on my Blackhawk that lets that tool stick out 2 inches, the same 2 inches every single time. So if I were to get a tape and check this, mine might be 1 7/8 inches, but it's what I'm doing every single time. So when I walk over to my grinder, let me back up a little bit here so you can see me. I'll walk over to my grinder on my tool, on my bar. On the ones I sell, I have a little tab sticking up. They're about 2 inches back. On this one, it's a little piece of corian because I do several things on it. I butt the tool into the piece of corian. Don't worry about it. It might be steel on steel. You're about to sharpen it. So, then I tighten it up. Then I roll it over and look down the barrel. I want to make sure that the tool is flat to the tool, to the jig. Now I'm ready to grind. Don't 1 second. I'm ready. Now the next part of the math is just as critical and just as simple. Here's the wheel. This is the center of the wheel. Right there. The basket that you're going to set this in, this little thing out here, that is 4 inches down from the center of that wheel. So you come straight out and you go down 4 inches. It's not from the face of the wheel, it's not from the bottom of the wheel, it's not from the top of the wheel, it's from the dead center of the wheel down to that basket. 4 inches. If yours isn't 4, adjust it. If you've got one made by some bloke over on the other side of the pond, or some Canuck, I love those guys, okay? And the basket's too low, cut a block of wood to fit in the basket, put a depression in it to be 4 inches, and then super glue it in place. Yeah, super glue it in place. That works. Now, we have the 4. Let me explain the 7. This is one of those take-two things. Now, there are 3 numbers you need when you sharpen a tool. 2, 4, and 7. The 2 is how much it sticks out the jig. The 4 is how low the basket is from the center of the wheel. From the center of the wheel down to the basket, 4. From the face of the wheel to the basket is 7. Yeah, it's always 7. Now, always. If you're trying to duplicate a grind you have, you may need to adjust a little bit. But here's the deal. Once you make that adjustment, you want to lock it in with a template. Now, I am 7, and I'm 4, and I'm 2. And when I put my first test grind on, I'm going to check it with my protractor, and I'm going to see if I'm between 55 and 65 degrees. Or if I'm duplicating the grind that I really, really like. Remember, if you love a grind and you're going to do it all over again, time and time and time again, lock yourself in. Because that's the way to get really good with your tools. Really, if you keep changing things, where are you going to, I don't need to go there. Don't change anything. If you're getting good with the tool, get good with it. Now, what do I put that on? This is a 1/2 inch in diameter, because there's no standards for this stuff. 1/2 inch diameter, Deep U by Dave at D-Way Tools. Right here. D-Way Tools. Dave. Alright, he makes this one. This is a 3/8 bowl gouge by Dave at D-Way Tools. This is a 3/8 detail gouge. A little bit shallow flute for a little bit different grind. What? A little bit different grind? Who said that? It gets the same grind. And it works awesome. The only difference in these two grinds is this relief. Let me show you something. Get it where you can see this, because I can't cut it in worth a darn. So, whoop. You see that grind? You see how the back side of it? See that back side, that steel going? I was never going to cut with that steel. And if I'm looking to turn a sharp corner, that steel is actually going to be in the way. You weren't ready for this, were you? Okay, now, with that in mind, how do we grind that? Really, how do we grind that relief? Well, I was taught that grind by a very nice Israeli fellow named Eli Avicera. And he did it the simple way. He sharpened it with the jig, then he turned on his grinder, he just took the back off like that. Well, I watched that a few times, and I said, Ellie, you know, we could modify that jig to do it a little bit differently. And he says, do whatever you can do to make sharpening easier. So I came back, and that was 6-7 years ago. That's how fast it is to set it up. This is that one pass just now gave me a razor sharp, ready to go, new edge on my tool. Now, I'm going to relieve some of the back of it. You see that button right, that stop right there? I could have done it freehand, but if I have the button there, I relieve it the same every single time. And it does really make a difference. But let's talk about locking it in. I guess I skipped the part where I should have talked about the wheels. Okay, these are CBN wheels. It's a new process. It's a product impregnated into a wheel. It doesn't wear away. It cuts cooler, cleaner, and I've got a fine one and a coarse one. I've only used a coarse one about 3 times because I really don't shape tools at but one time. Once they're shaped, all I do from that point on is sharpen. And it makes tools last a lot longer than they used to. Now, locking in. This setting, 4/7. It's right there. See it? Whoop, got in a little bit too much. That tells me that I'm 7 out. I do know my 4 is set. And my 2 I set every time on this. I can check my setup with this, but I don't have to on the CBN wheels. They don't wear down. Now, what I have is a little something special. Now, what shocks me is, I'm just a little bitty guy in the industry, but I'm a wood turner. You see that little red knob right there? I call it acu-set. This is my CBN wheel. If I pull this out, move that jig, put this jig in to do my roughing gouge, which just goes up and goes around and around and around, or an old-fashioned bowl gouge, which just goes back and forth. Then I've changed the setting, right? All right. Then I want to go back to grinding my Ellsworth again. The French got a term for this. They call it wah-wah. This puts it right back, same spot. Now, if I'm using other grindable wheels, every time I do a major dressing, I should check the setting with my template. But until I do a major dressing, I don't need to check that template. Those acu-sets put it right back where it needs to be. Couple other quick notes. I get asked about, do I make a rig for doing skews? No, I don't. Why? Because I don't like the concave grind on a skew. I like the convex grind on a skew. To do that grind, I do it right here. I just take my skew and run it back and forth on the wheel. Rock it. I look for 25 degrees on these points. That's using my little protractor. That's how I sharpen my skew. Other things. Wheels. What about wheels? I can't afford these CBN wheels. They're an expensive toy. Yeah, they really are. I'm glad I bought them when I was working, because in retirement I couldn't do it. But I didn't have these forever. And I had Norton XXX wheels. I had a 60 grit and an 80 grit. And it did fine for me for 15 years. I didn't need the pink one. I didn't need the blue one. I didn't need the white one. I didn't need the coral one. I didn't need all that stuff. I needed a good, friable XXX wheel. Friable. It gives up particles to stay sharp so it doesn't load down. Really. And if you take it easy on shaping, all right, here's the deal. You can't shape a tool on a sharpening stone. You shape a tool on a grinding stone. That's a 60 or a 36. And then when you need to touch it up, you take it to the sharpening stone, which is finer. Cap, what are you talking about? They both come in the same kind of box and everything else. Okay, it's what you do with them that makes them what they are. Your roughing wheel does heavy grinding. Your sharpening wheel does sharpening, light grinding, light takeoff, light moves. If you do it that way, your dressing goes less, which means your wheel lasts longer. You take off less steel, and it stays more exact. So what I'm saying is, get yourself a jig, build a jig. I'm not kidding you. I've got the $2 rig in a video. All right, you can look at it and make your own. If you want the details on the basket and David Ellsworth's own notes, send me for the tips package at eddiecastellan@cox.net, and I'll be glad to send it to you. And then you have the actual paperwork to follow along. And you can build it all out of wood. Everything can be built out of wood. Or you can buy it from me. Now, I have a couple of versions. I'll sell you just this jig. It's $15 plus postage. Just a jig. I'll sell you the jig and the basket and the arm. I'm sorry, the end of the arm and the end of the other arm. That's the International Black Hawk. Now, what are you going to do with the ends of the arms? You go to Home Depot, you get your own tube stock, and you add it to your own tube stock. And that package comes with 2 acu-sets. So you can do the acu-sets. The third one is, by telephone only, I will make it up for you. I'll give you a tube with the end machined on it, the tube with the other piece on it, and all that. I'm just limiting how much stuff I can put on my website. I don't want to eliminate a product to add a product. I already have a product. Yeah, okay, you got that. Oh, okay. But if you're looking to get one, just, number one, give me a call. Call me at this number. Nobody talks to me. Nobody calls. Well, one guy just now called, didn't he? Okay, so that's the deal. Now, with all that in mind, I am going to wrap this up. All this started today when I chucked up a piece of pretty little cocobolo. And I was going to turn a nice simple little jar to put an ornamented lid on. Simple little project. I was going to rough it, and then the phone rang. And the guy said, Cap, I've been grinding on my thing all day, and I can't get it to be exactly. And my question to him was, what was wrong with it before? So before you chuck up that tool and start grinding away and trying to match some guy that lives in Never Never Land's personal grind and recommendation, and I've heard almost all of them, think about this. If your tool works really good for you, and your grind will cut wood nicely, and you're happy with it, build a rig or a jig that will allow you to duplicate that grind every single time you sharpen, not rough in, every time you sharpen, to where you get a sharp, crisp edge quickly, you reduce the tool minimally, and it's good and sharp. I don't know if I've been redundant on that, but good and sharp is a key part for this. If you can get that tool sharp simply, quickly, every time, you will be so happy. You will. And as you've seen in my videos, I can, at any time, on any of my rigs, step over to the grinder, make one pass, and come back with a clean, sharp, ready to cut edge. So if you want to do that, get yourself locked in. I'm Captain Eddie Castle, and thanks for joining me today as we got ready to be making shavings. You take care and be good.